what appraisal you're using. There is a difference. I was not aware of it.
All right, go ahead.
Just to follow up with his question, how does IDOT select these appraisers? You say they're independent. I guess, you know, that worries some people. You know,
Sure.
independent could also mean how many jobs has this appraiser, or how many projects have they done with Illinois or with IDOT? How are they selected?
In order to do an appraisal for IDOT, you need to be a state certified general appraiser. You have to be licensed in the state of Illinois to do appraisal work. Now, they also need to be on IDOT's approved list, which means that in order to be hired by us, which means they have to prove to us their qualifications and their competency before they can be on the approved list. I know the appraisers who we've assigned, it's about 8 or 9 different firms that we've assigned out here to do this project. They have all been doing work for IDOT for several years, some as long as 25. Our review appraiser, one of them is a gentleman right here in Will County, and he's been doing IDOT work for about 40 years, 35 years now, the first 5 of his career, making it 40, whereas an IDOT staff appraiser. So we are not selected people just off the street, anytime.
So they're very strongly affiliated with IDOT.
That's, I think,
Oh, yeah.
They work for IDOT.
They work for IDOT, and
They are IDOT consultants.
wait, let me say this though, and let me say this in defense of our appraisers and our selection process of our appraisers. If this goes through, and we fully anticipate that this project will go through and offers will be presented to you as property owners, you will be given a copy of that appraisal report. You can pick it apart, slice, dice it, do whatever you want with it. You will get a copy of that report. Go to one of the last pages. They all list their clients. It is every one of those appraisers, their list of clients does not stop at the Illinois Department of Transportation. Some of those pages, some of those clients are 2 or 3 pages in length, from banks to counties to private companies to probably Ridge Intermodal to Centerpoint to the nuclear plant. These are qualified appraisers that do all kinds of different work and have been doing it for a very long time, and their list of clients is as long as my arm. They are not specifically sitting there just doing only IDOT work. If they did, they would starve to death.
This is a unique situation where we're not selling our house to another resident. You're selling to the developer.
and on his point, why isn't every person that owns a piece of property in this route, this is for a commercial project, is a road, a toll road, should be considered a commercial type project. Why aren't we gonna be paid commercial rate for every one of our properties, whether it's agricultural, residential, or a business? And since the state just bought Bolt Field for $34 million and paid him $118,000 an acre, I think we're entitled to that too. You kind of set the precedent there. We should all get $118,000 an acre, I think, if we gotta sell. It's a commercial project. Why are we going to be, why is the rate gonna be adjusted, and why aren't we being appraised as commercial, whether it's residential, agricultural, or commercial?
That's just a question you're gonna have to answer with, your appraiser and your attorney for that particular.
Yeah, but they're the land acquisition. Why can't, they should have that answer,
That's
no?
not their answer.
The appraiser is required to appraise the fair market value, what the value of that property is worth in the free market,
But they're not apples and apples. They're trading
unimpacted
apples
by
and
the
oranges.
project, as if the project didn't exist. You said before, some people, well, my value was dragged down because there's a project coming. No, the appraiser is not to consider the project as it adversely affects a property. There actually is a way that he considers a positive impact on the value of the property under certain specific circumstances. I'm going to leave that to the
But
lawyers
it's
to
not
explain.
like ours, we've got 2 parcels in our family that are directly affected. They're both agricultural, it's our dairy farm, so it's our business and it's our grain farming. It's 2 different farms. It's not gonna be IDOT's not buying our 80-acre dairy farm to put another dairy farm on. You're buying it to put a commercial highway through. So we should be paid commercial value, not agricultural value, because it's not gonna be replaced with a dairy farm. These people's houses aren't gonna be replaced with another house. It's gonna be replaced with a commercial highway. So if we have to be inconvenienced, we have to have our lives upset and disrupted for over 2 years now, and moving forward, who knows how many years to go. Why aren't we gonna be compensated justly for commercial value? Instead of more or less getting screwed, because if I got just a residential place, you're only gonna appraise it residential, but you're not gonna replace it with another house. You're gonna replace it with a toll road. You're not gonna replace a farm that's zoned ag, or even vacant, or, you know, farmland, not vacant, but no buildings on it, you know, just farmland. You're not gonna replace it with empty farmland. You're gonna put a highway through it. That should be adjusted accordingly, and just as he had to get a commercial appraisal as versus
Wilmington
a residential
recommended they got
appraisal,
that.
every person that's affected directly should get a commercial appraisal.
That's gonna be up to each individual person at that particular point in time.
Well, let them know what they need to do.
You're able to raise these arguments as part of the valuation process.
Except their expense.
Why don't
Well,
you start it out?
Well,
Why
Because
isn't
that's
there
not-
a
that's-
precedent to
because that's
protect
not
the
the
residents
law.
instead
because we
of?
follow the law in valuing the property. And if you have a farm, it will be valued as a farm, and that's the return. You're more than willing to tell the judge, I think the laws of the state of Illinois should be changed, and I think you should value my property based on what they're gonna use it for.
Well, not only
You
the judge,
can-
but
you
also
can-
the jury who will
and-
make the ultimate
right.
decision.
Well,
And
you
they
can
may-
make
they may
Because
agree
the
with
state's
you.
thinking, well, I can buy this land cheaper out here because it is farmland.
They may, but the judge or the jury
However,
may
it's our
agree with you.
business, we're not compensated for our loss of wages moving forward.
You know, I appreciate your questions more than anything. I just want to give everyone else an opportunity, but before I do that, I do want to introduce Senator Sue Resin. She got here, if you want to say something.
Thank you. I apologize for being late. I've had meetings in my office in Peru and I had until 5:30. I appreciate this meeting. We hear a lot regarding not only this project, but many projects actually that we're dealing with going through the district. And property rights are a very, very important thing, and it's a very difficult when these projects come through. A couple of things. I've been dealing with former Secretary Ann Schneider almost on a weekly basis with not only this subject in this area and the challenges that it presents in this community directly, but also other challenges that we have in this community with all of the truck traffic driving through downtown, going to the intermodal, with no sign now on Interstate 55 and all of that. So we work very closely with the mayor to, you know, put this on the Secretary's radar from the Department of Transportation. And she's worked very closely with us. We did ask for her as we're trying to figure this out, because this project was passed before we were here, 2009. So as they move forward with it, we're trying to make sure that we are giving the best answers and best, you know, representation to my community in this area. As we kind of, first thing we ask for is an ombudsman for this project. Somebody you guys can go to and ask questions. Because me, like many of you, I don't know. I mean, a lot of these questions, and my question is going to be to the IDOT too. One of my questions is, if you have farmland and you sold it high, which many people have in the past 5 or 10 years, but obviously property values have declined since then, do you get what you bought it at, or, you know, many, many years ago, or do you get what it's valued at now? That's the question for IDOT. I don't know that, and I want to make sure that you're represented and get your values out of it. I know you have a very good advocate for you for property rights owner in the room too. I'm sure she is Judy O'Gala as well, somewhere here, you know, and Reagan as well, to make sure that you guys are protected. One thing that we did pass in session, tried to get it done as a bill, but I'll be honest with you, I couldn't get it done because there would have been a lot of pushback and opposition to it, so I got it done as a resolution. It's a start. It's a property bill of rights for landowners. what you guys should expect when these projects come through, because this isn't gonna be the first or the last one that you'll have to deal with. There's many private projects that are coming through my district. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Clean Line Energy project that's cut through the middle of the district as well. The resolution was to give you what you should be asking for when you go to speak with the ombudsman or when you're speaking with IDOT. Make sure, obviously the things that make sense, but I hear from the landowners, they're not happening. When IDOT comes, you need to be notified. They need to leave tags, they need to tell you before, they need to carry insurance, all of that stuff. And if it's not happening, and these are conversations that we have had with the secretary, that needs to happen. And she recognizes it and tries to take care of it. And as you know, unfortunately, she is out there. We have a new secretary of IDOT that we will be working very closely with as well. And so we'll deal with that. Also, if you have drainage tile issues, we want tilers that are local that you know, because tile issues happen 2 years, 3 years down the road when you have major rain. That 500-year flood that we have now every year, that messes with your tile. So we want to make sure you got local tilers who'll come back, who know you, who are gonna in 3 years come back and say, you know what, yeah, I know it, I'll fix it, whatever. As opposed to somebody coming from out of state doing one project and you can't get your answer in 2 to 3 years. We also want to make sure in terms of in projects in general, that when they're done, now I'm talking about many, so we have IDOT, but I also have pipelines coming through, that we have sufficient topsoil, covering it, because there's a compaction component as well. To that. So we're having these conversations. I know it's not what you want to hear, but we have had a lot of conversations. We did get this resolution passed. It's a starting point for you guys when you're trying to deal when you're having your conversations with IDOT, having the ombudsman. His job is really to answer a lot of your questions. And that's what we need, is this go-to person for these big projects. Is it gonna be easy? These projects never are. I mean, they just aren't. But property rights are very, very important to us in this district, and so whatever we can do to make sure that we get you the answers as we go through, we will. And that's basically what I can say on that. And I appreciate you two standing in the line of fire back here. I did come in early. It's never easy to stand in the line of fire, but these are valid questions that I have had with the secretary when she's here. You know what? They deserve the value of their property. And in my opinion, I know what the law says, but I always say a little bit more, because you are completely, your lives are being, put in an upheaval because of these projects going through. But we do have questions. If the land value was, if they bought it at commercial prices, a lot of these farms were sold or bought at $80,000 an acre. That's not the cost anymore. Will they be able to, since the value's gone down, where's IDOT going to come in on those appraisals? And I think that they are valid questions from this point forward as we go through, and appreciate the ombudsman, Mike, for being here and being very attentive to a lot of the people, but as we go forward. But I had heard that the rod was coming down this fall, so now that it's like it's pushed back.
So a question regarding property owners. I've had multiple people contact me that they've had property damage from the surveyors or the boring company.
Needs to be fixed.
How,
Needs to be
who
fixed.
do they need to submit the bills to?
This
And
needs to be fixed.
And like right now, you've got the crops are growing.
Yep.
The farmers have gone through enough with Mother Nature. There shouldn't be anybody out there damaging any crops right now.
Yeah, and I do agree with that, and I don't know, Mike, you might be able to answer that if you are the person where they're coming
I can
with
certainly
with
get
issues.
that
It does. I've
information.
had this conversation
Absolutely.
with former secretary that, there is a compaction component. There, when people come in, they do the borings, and I was hearing from many people that they came on my property, they did the borings, and they weren't notified. I know that
And
they
they
were
left
very.
holes, and some of the
Exactly.
farmers found the holes this spring.
And they need to be fixed.
Luckily in the
Period.
daylight, not
Yep,
at night.
and people were falling in it. And I do work very closely with Mark,
Schneider.
thank you, from Farm Bureau as well, and that was a perfect example. He said, it just needs to be fixed.
I think, well,
Do you have just an answer to that last question about damage, any damage that may have been caused by surveyors or do people submit bills or things like that, as well
Do they
as?
need to take pictures? I mean, what
As
do the
well as,
residents need
as
to
well as,
do?
could you just answer the question of, to your knowledge right now, I would agree with that, they shouldn't be coming on the property with crops there, so.
Right. scheduling a project like this is extremely difficult, no matter what we're trying to do, be it surveys, be it soil boring surveys, be it appraisers walking out there on your property. Scheduling a project of this magnitude is never easy. I know we have tried, our preliminary engineering, phase one, has tried to avoid going onto private property without A, permission, and B, at a time that is best for the property owner. If you're a farmer with crops in the field, we don't want to be going out there with a four-wheel buggy rolling out there to drill, soil borings. Again, timeframes and time limits being what they are, sometimes they have due dates that it requires them to go out there and do it during an inadvantageous time, if I said that correctly, sorry. Incorrectly, I apologize. Document it. I would take your pictures, take your measurements. Somebody could say, well, half acre of my, crops were damaged. Take the measurements. Give us a little sketch. It doesn't have to be a survey, but give us a little sketch. 100 feet by 75 feet. This is my location on my property where this took place. I would recommend that you get as much documentation as possible. If there were bills that you incurred because of that, accumulate those with all that documentation. I don't know, Mike, if you want to act as the central point for that coming to you,
I
for
can
you to
certainly
forward
take
to us.
those, and I can certainly act as that person.
I think
Okay.
that was the intent in my conversation with Secretary Schneider. Because before, a lot of you, I think, are going to Will County Farm Girl, so Mark would contact me and all of that, but that was the purpose of, one of the purposes when I spoke with the secretary is they need that go-to person, and,
Happy to do
I think that's what they need. I mean, it's not asking much, in my opinion.
No.
If you want to give them this
And how long does it, I mean, what do I tell the people, how long does it take for them to be reimbursed? Because if they're gonna hire somebody to fix it, that guy wants to get paid right away. The state of Illinois isn't very timely on.
In Virginia, I
paying the bills.
apologize, I don't have an accurate answer for you on that. I don't have an accurate answer as far as the time frame to be paid.
We will get back.
Right.
We will get back to it.
And I would say exactly what Senator Rudden said. I have my information here, et cetera, and if you have these types of issues, then work directly with me, and I'll work with IDOT, and we'll get this process going and answer your questions.
Or Mark
Is that-
from Farm Bureau, he's a great advocate to get to you.
Okay, that's enough. I think we have a forum here, pretty good sized one. I think we should have a vote. Who wants it and who doesn't want it?
It ain't gonna help, but let's do it.
You take the count.
No, let me.
What do you mean?
No, I want to like to hear this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name's Jackie Danilevich, I'm in Foxtel Commons, which has the gray cloud hovering over it. You do understand why we're crabby. You're not dealing with our houses, you're dealing with our homes, and that is extremely personal. And for just sitting here tonight to find out that you've chosen a route, really? And we're finding out here, that wasn't, it should have immediately been in the newspaper. Yeah, it's a weekly, not a daily, but, I think we deserve to know that. Also, what you need to do, and Reagan also, John also, get on her Facebook page for the No Illiana for Us. You will see, and not have to hear us, people complaining, people angry, people with little issues that you don't even know about yet. And then I assume you pay attention to studies, like the environmental stuff. I'm sure you've got your finger on that pulse, because there is a grub we know out there that's endangered. And, there you go. But the one that shocked me the most, was when they had on the news that the study was the main route for drugs from Indiana to Illinois is Route 80. So if we're relieving traffic from Route 80 to the Illiana, that's an issue. That's an issue. And that's beyond, I have a road in my backyard now. That's serious.
Can I answer about the Sure. Again, we're land acquisitions, we're not the project representatives.
But we do have
Where are they?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I misspoke. okay? We are not the project design representatives. We're not the project regulatory representatives. We're the land acquisition folks. That's what we anticipated people would talk about. But the preferred alternative was chosen several months ago, and at least from what I saw, there was coverage of the preferred alternative being identified as part of the FHWA process.
I was at the meeting where we talked about the two preferred, plus the no-build is still an option.
Okay. What I want to do is I want to get back to you with the answer. Okay, I'm a land acquisition person, I'm not a regulatory person. If you, after the meeting, could give me your email or your phone number, I will get you the answer. Okay, but it's my understanding that the preferred alternative has been a public issue for a few months now, or a publicly identified.
Not decided.
Can I ask you, am I?
I was of the same opinion. that this is
Okay,
something
can I
that
ask
we
you,
now-
pin that down?
Can I ask you a question? You stated earlier that there's 285 to 300 properties affected, okay?
Is that just
On the Illinois side.
On the Illinois side.
Sorry, yep.
Have at least letters gone out to all of those property owners on those properties, letting them know at least that their property is going to be potentially affected? So if you got a letter, you know you're possibly in line, and if you did not get a letter, theoretically, your property is not an issue. Is it that simple to use the word?
They should have gotten several letters already, am I right? And I hear no's all through the room. I'm just wondering if you could tell us about these instances where people didn't get a letter and that they know their property's being taken.
There's several people where maybe the land is
Could they
in
tell
land
us?
trust.
Could they tell us?
We got a letter like Virginia back in March.
Okay.
We are absolutely, whichever way it went, our house is gonna be taken, stolen, whatever you wanna call it. We have not gotten a letter since then. And now, it's my understanding, you said earlier tonight, that those that are gonna be taken for sure have gotten those letters saying, call and set up an appointment for an appraisal. We have not gotten that letter.
Yeah, and I apologize if I misspoke earlier. We have inspected, as I said before, I believe I spoke this correctly, approximately 250 of the 285 to 300 properties have been inspected. There are some where the inspections had not taken place yet, and we have called those off and put them on hold for the time being. There's no sense in doing the inspection now, as Virginia's pointed out, many times tonight. If we're doing the appraisal now, it's probably gonna get stale if the rod doesn't come until later in the winter. So we've called off the appraisers and the inspections of the properties that had not been looked at yet. We have put those on hold for the time being. But, and I know some people go away for the winter, go out of town. I just saw your hand go up, ma'am. Letters should have been delivered to your mailboxes still. Unless it came back to our office and we can check on it for you. If you want to give us your name and address afterwards, some letters may have come back uncollected. That's a possibility.
I've had many people contact my office and wonder whether they're in the preferred alternative or not, and I've always gotten a straight answer from my that, yes or no.
Yeah, and that may be the case too. If you haven't received a letter, maybe we're not buying any property from you. You may fall just outside the current footprint, so that could be the case also.
Yes, we have some questions over here.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Yeah, okay, my name is Marge, and you guys said that
Excuse me, can we hear this?
the state has funds to purchase our properties. They have enough funds to buy all these properties?
Yes.
It's already in place?
It's
the
funded.
money's
Land
there.
acquisition is funded currently, yes,
Okay,
By the state.
by the state, yes.
by the state,
And
using state funds.
are they going to buy all of these properties at one time? The whole route? Because they're going to do this in segments. That's on the internet. The document that was signed says they're starting in Indiana. You don't know, are they? Where are they starting? That's what it says on the internet.
Must be true.
Yep, that's right.
I'm sorry, I missed your comment. Before I say something, go ahead.
It was
No, I said
Oh.
must be true, it's on the internet.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Our intention is to, once the ROD is executed and we have appraisals completed, as the completed appraisal comes in, our intention is to make offers to those property owners in a very timely fashion. And that is all the properties, 285 to 300. Our intention is, at this time, to march forward and begin the acquisition process on all of the properties. Unless we're given different marching orders and, told, only do the east end first, only do the west end, only do the middle, whatever the case may be. Our marching orders at this time, marching orders is the wrong word, I apologize. Our direction at this time is to make offers on all the properties as those appraisals come in, and we anticipate the appraisals coming in fairly rapidly, one after another.
Don't they do these projects in segments in case they run out of funds? I've heard of that before. They do a big project, they started here, they go to this point, they run out of money, they never finish. Is this the past history? Is this what they do? I mean, you guys,
The private-public partnership, again, is not something that is commonplace here in the state of Illinois. I don't, from what we are told, that this will all be done at one time. They may get an early start, at an intersection, let's say, for example, where a lot of work needs to be done, or a bridge needs to be done first. But it's our understanding that this project will march forward basically all at one time.
can I send you the information I saw on the internet?
Sure.
And you decipher that for me if it says they're starting here, because that's what it looks like to me.
We'll look at it. I just wanted to say
Document
that
they signed.
one of the elements of getting the best price from the private money is to give them the greatest flexibility on how they do it. They can find the most efficient way to do it. There will be phasing that gets determined within larger parameters established by the department. And that may not be determined until after a bidder is chosen. But our understanding is the land acquisition is to proceed on all parts at the same time.
So it could be like the airport, you buy all the land and it sits there. How stupid.
Somebody else have a question back here? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Brenda Peterson.
Can you stand up, please, and speak louder?
My question is this environmental lawsuit that's going on that may affect where the road's gonna go as far as Foxtail Commons. How do you go about doing the land acquisition if you don't know where that part of the road's gonna go because of the environmental impact? You understand what I'm saying?
I don't know that lawsuit affects the specific parts of the land at this point in time, so.
Because they said depending on where the road was going to curve, depending on the sheep nose mussels or along your back, that could affect some of the homes there.
I think I'm familiar with the lawsuit. I don't know the exact status of the lawsuit and how that's gonna play out is yet to be determined at this point in time.